Hi everyone and welcome to another video from DisplayRepair.com. In this video we're going to show you how to explain a car problem. Why is this important and why you should know it, you'll see, so stay tuned. DisplayRepair.com. Be sure to visit us at our website DisplayRepair.com where you can find more useful car and driving tips. Now, you may ask yourself, why is this important to know? Well, although there is an abundance of technology today for making a diagnosis of a car problem with OBD tools, various types of computers and everything else, trust me, the first thing that a mechanic will ask you when you visit a mechanic or a dealership, a garage or something else is, what is the problem? So if they're not gonna, just disregard you, go hook up an OBD tool and, come to a conclusion. The first thing that they're going to ask is you, what is the problem? What are the symptoms? What is happening? And so on. So when you have a ready answer to that question, the chances are that the problem is going to be solved in a much more faster and easier manner. For instance, if you come to a mechanic and you hear, for instance, a weird sound of some kind, and you come to a mechanic and you say, I know that the sound appears then, it appears in a certain situation or something like that, you already give a mechanic a pretty good idea of what may be wrong, opposed to when you come to a mechanic and he or she asks you, well, what's the sound like? And you say, well, I really don't know. Or when does it happen? And you say, well, I really don't remember. Or what's the sound like? And you're not decisive. This all can be misleading and cause problems. So the main reason for knowing this is that in most situations and in the long run, you can save yourself lots of time and money. When explaining a car problem, you should first rely on what you can see, hear, feel, and smell. The first and most obvious observation is what you can see. Pay attention to anything extraordinary, especially when looking under the hood, like strange movements, wobbling for instance. Is anything disconnected, broken? Is there any smoke? Are there any fumes or else? If you hear a sound, for instance, you have a bad wheel bearing. We've made a specific video on this topic. I'll leave a link so you can take a look. When you have a bad wheel bearing, there is a certain humming sound in the beginning of the problem, which eventually turns into a grinding sound at the end of the problem. If you're able to tell the mechanic that you have a humming sound coming from the front part of your car, this will be a huge help and a good heads up for what the problem may be. Regarding what you feel, for instance, you're driving and you feel a certain trembling on the steering wheel, or you feel the steering wheel pull to one side. Mentioning this to the mechanic may also give a good idea of what's wrong. It may be a bad CV joint, a bad tie rod, it may be an unbalanced tire or something else. Also a good hint. And regarding what you can smell, I'll mention the example of a bad serpentine belt, for instance. When one of the bearings, for instance on the alternator, is bad, the serpentine belt can run over the pulley and it can start to heat up and emit a certain smell. If you explain that there's a certain smell of burning rubber coming from under the hood, that is also a good clue to the mechanic what may be wrong. Also, for instance, if God forbid something is burning in the electric installation, for instance, a cable heats up and burns the insulation, there will be a specific smell of burning plastic, which if you mention to the mechanic will also give a good idea of what's wrong. Pay attention to the dashboard warning lights. The chances are that whenever you have a car problem, some of the dashboard warning lights will come up. Remember, what is the warning light that came up? Does it happen in a certain situation? If you don't know what dashboard warning light is for what warning, then at least take a picture. Sometimes the warning lights will come and go. For instance, the famous check engine light is known for this. So it may happen in a certain situation. When this happens, either try to remember what the warning light was, or even better, take a picture. This will be a huge help for the mechanic. Try to remember if the problem happens in specific situations. Car problems are oftentimes induced by certain situations. For instance, certain sounds will appear only if you go over holes. Certain sounds will appear only in warm weather or cold weather. Certain problems will appear only in a certain situation, and so on. So if the problem happens during certain situations and you notice a pattern, notice it, remember it, and tell it to the mechanic. Make a good record of the problem. In today's era of smartphones, this shouldn't be a problem. You, of course, can write down the problem, but this is sort of outdated, effective nevertheless. But when you notice the problem, take your smartphone and take pictures, or even better, make a video. If you have a live presentation of the problem, this will be a huge help, and you'll save yourself from a lot of explaining and perhaps causing any kind of confusion. So you'll have a valid record of what's wrong. For the last tip, be honest when explaining the car problem. Now, most people when visiting a mechanic will be honest about what the problem is. This tip is mostly for instance, when you've done a DIY repair and it goes bad on you, then you take the car to the mechanic and try to fix it. Tell what the situation is and try to be honest. It will be better both for you and the mechanic for solving the problem. Also, if you poorly maintain your car, you don't do the maintenance on time, you can tell that also, especially if you don't have a regular maintenance record, okay? Just be honest, say, I don't maintain the car properly. The mechanic will also see that, but it's much better if you tell the truth. So when you come and visit the mechanic, be sincere, say to the best of your knowledge what the problem is, and it will be much better. So there you have it. I hope these simple steps will help you explain your car problem to a mechanic. The main point of all this is to be clear when coming to a mechanic and explaining the problem. Trust me, it will be a huge help mainly for you, but for the mechanic, and the problem will be solved sooner. So that's it for this time. I hope this video helps. Please like and subscribe. It's a huge help for what we're doing. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your time.